And we start then with that news from Washington that Colin Powell has died of complications related to COVID-19. His family broke that news today on his Facebook page. He was 84 years old and served as the first ever black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff before becoming George W. Bush's Secretary of State in the run-up to the war in Iraq. Well, for the very latest now, we can cross to Washington. Our correspondent Ketavan Gorjestani is standing by. Ketavan, we're hearing he died of COVID-19, as I mentioned. What more can you tell us about what happened?
Yes, that was confirmed by his family when they posted that statement to his Facebook page, confirming that he had died of complications from COVID-19. And they made sure to specify that he was indeed fully vaccinated. It's not clear whether he had gotten any booster shots, but he did actually get fully vaccinated in the first round at least. And that's pretty significant because here in the United States, and this is a question also around the world, the question of breakthrough infections, those people who are vaccinated but still get the virus and get very ill or die from it, which is the case for Colin Powell. It has to be said that, of course, Colin Powell was 84 years old, and those breakthrough infections are most dangerous, of course, for the elderly, and this really putting a spotlight on that issue of breakthrough infections, though we don't have many more details as to how long maybe he was in the hospital or how quickly his situation deteriorated.
Now, Ketavan, tributes are already pouring in for Colin Powell. Among them is Lloyd Austin, the US Secretary of Defense. Let's have a listen to what he had to say today.
The world lost one of the greatest leaders that we have ever witnessed. Alma lost a great husband, and the family lost a tremendous father. And I lost a tremendous personal friend and mentor. We will certainly miss him. I feel as if I have a hole in my heart just learning of this just recently. First African-American chairman of the Joint Chiefs. First African-American Secretary of State. A man who was respected around the globe and who will be, quite frankly, it is not possible to replace a Colin Powell. We will miss him.
A really poignant statement there, Ketavan, from Lloyd Austin, though obviously he's not the only person who's been speaking today. There's been reaction from across the aisle where you are. Give us a sense of why it is that Colin Powell is being honoured today by politicians from across the political spectrum.
Well, there are two words that come back in many of those statements, those comments about his death. Trailblazer and statesman. Trailblazer, of course, and we heard a little bit from Lloyd Austin about that. A trailblazer for the African-American community. He was indeed the first African-American Joint Chiefs. That was under George H.W. Bush, George Bush Sr., and then, of course, the first Black Secretary of State under George W. Bush, Bush Jr., but he was also the first African-American to be National Security Advisor. That was under Ronald Reagan. So 3 different Republican administrations, 3 times where he was the first black man to take that job. And so for the African-American community across the board, whether they're Republican or Democrats, he is seen as someone who broke barriers. And you saw the Congressional Black Caucus in Congress put out a statement about that trail-blazing profile of Colin Powell, and also statesman because he was really respected in the Republican Party, of course, because he served so many of these Republican presidents. But after serving for George W. Bush, after the Iraq War, that debacle, he turned towards the Democratic Party. He endorsed Barack Obama, he endorsed Joe Biden, and he was very respected among Democrats.
Ketavan Gorjestani in Washington, thanks very much indeed for your reporting today. We're going to